Welcome back to the channel, everyone. We are gathering here to peer into the shadows of Port Charles, searching for the stories that are quietly unfolding just out of sight. There was a moment recently that I just cannot get out of my head. It was a fleeting detail, something that might have easily slipped past the radar if you were not paying close attention. It happened when Elizabeth Baldwin stumbled upon an online article showing Jack Brennan walking out of Turning Woods completely on his own. The facade of his debilitating stroke, the carefully constructed illusion of a frail, bedridden man, was suddenly gone. He was moving freely, out in the open, leaving the safety of his medical confinement. Something about that moment stayed with me. At first, it didn't seem important. We all knew Brennan was faking his condition to avoid maximum security imprisonment. But for a seasoned, highly trained operative to suddenly drop his cover and walk out into the daylight where anyone, including a sharp-eyed nurse like Elizabeth, could see him, that is not the behavior of a man in control. That is the behavior of a man who is rushing, a man who is suddenly desperate to put out fires that are burning too close to his own doorstep. The more I think about it, the more I realize that Jack Brennan is currently weaving a web that is far too tangled, even for a master spy. Let us follow the thread of his recent actions. He was nearly assassinated in his own room by an operative sent by Ross Cullum, a grim fate he only escaped because Nina Reeves happened to be there to save his life. That moment forged a bond, a debt of gratitude that Brennan is now determined to repay. He promised Nina and Willow Kane that he would secure the ultimate blackmail material to neutralize Drew Kane and free Willow from his control. But to do that, Brennan needs the missing black briefcase. And where is that briefcase? It is currently in the hands of Valentine Cassadine, a man who is expertly negotiating to unfreeze his own assets in exchange for the box. Brennan is no longer operating from a position of absolute power. He is negotiating, compromising, and relying on volatile civilians to keep his secrets. He is stepping out of the shadows and directly into the messy, unpredictable crossfire of Port Charles family drama. This brings us to the shadow beneath the story. There have been lingering whispers and backstage rumors suggesting that actor Chris McKenna might be preparing to step away from General Hospital. While we never take rumors as absolute gospel, looking purely at the narrative unfolding on our screens, the writing seems to be on the wall. Brennan is isolating himself, overextending his reach, and making dangerous promises he might not be able to keep. He has chosen to align himself with Willow and Nina in a bitter, high-stakes war against Drew Kane. But by doing so, he is indirectly positioning himself against some of the most powerful and fiercely protected individuals in town. If Willow and Nina's desperate plans begin to collapse, and given Nina's recent reckless act of pushing a recovering Drew into the lake, that collapse seems imminent. Brennan will be dragged down with them. But I do not think Brennan is destined for a courtroom or a return to a federal penitentiary. I believe someone is going to permanently remove him from the board before the law ever gets a chance to intervene. I keep wondering whether this entire volatile situation is on a collision course with the one man in Port Charles who operates entirely outside the law to protect his blood. Jason Morgan has just made his highly anticipated return to town. He came back a changed man, deeply scarred by his time in WSB captivity, and he has made the monumental decision to step away from Sonny Corinthos' mob organization. Jason wants to be a father to Danny. He wants to leave the violence behind. But there is a core element of Jason's psychology that will never change, no matter how much he wishes for a peaceful life. Jason will do absolutely anything to protect Michael Corinthos. It doesn't seem accidental that Jason has returned exactly at the moment when Michael's wife, Willow, is spiraling into a dark abyss of secrets, hit and runs, and dangerous alliances with federal criminals. Picture the scenario that is slowly building on the horizon. Willow is backed into a corner, terrified of losing her family, her career, and her freedom. Brennan, desperate to honor his promise and protect his own compromised position, decides to take matters into his own hands. If Michael discovers the depths of Willow's deception, the framed hit and run, the harboring of Jen Sidwell, the alliance with Brennan Michael will inevitably become a threat to Brennan's survival. I can vividly imagine a dark, tense confrontation where Brennan realizing his entire network is collapsing, draws a weapon on Michael. In that split second, Jason Morgan steps out of the shadows. Jason may have retired from the mob, but he will not hesitate to pull the trigger to save his nephew's life. If this happens, the tragedy would not just be Brennan's demise. It would be the dark aftermath. Jason and Michael would be left standing over the body of a high-ranking WSB agent. They could not simply call the police and claim self-defense without exposing Willow's entire criminal conspiracy. They would be forced to cover it up. Jason and Michael, bound together by the secret of Brennan's murder, hiding the truth from their family, the authorities, and the WSB. It would be a haunting, psychological burden that could drive the narrative for months, creating a chilling parallel to the secrets Willow has been keeping from Michael. But maybe there's another layer here. The WSB is an incredibly complex, ruthless organization, and we have recently seen exactly how they operate. They just orchestrated a massive cover-up, pinning all of Ross Cullum's heinous crimes and the murder of Marco Rios on the deceased Cassius Phazon. They are currently secretly recruiting Cassius, who is actually alive, to work for them in the shadows. The WSB cleans house. They do not tolerate loose ends. And they certainly do not tolerate agents who become sloppy. Jack Brennan has become sloppy. He is being spotted by nurses. He is getting entangled in local blackmail schemes, and he is losing control of highly sensitive intelligence like the Black Briefcase. What if we're missing something entirely regarding the new arrivals in Port Charles? We know that a mysterious business executive named Hudson is arriving in town. The surface narrative suggests that Hudson is looking for a specific person, perhaps someone connected to Ethan Lovett's past or someone named Delilah Wilson. Ethan was so terrified by the prospect of this man's arrival that he abandoned his budding romance with Ava Jerome and fled town immediately. That level of fear implies that Hudson is not just a corporate suit. What if Hudson is actually a high-ranking lethal operative for the WSB? If the WSB has lost faith in Jack Brennan, they would not simply fire him. A man with Brennan's knowledge is too dangerous to be left wandering the streets. They would send a cleaner. Hudson could be stepping into Port Charles under the guise of a businessman, but his true mission could be to execute a burn order on Jack Brennan. Imagine the cold, calculated efficiency of the WSB deciding that Brennan has outlived his usefulness. Hudson could be tasked with liquidating Brennan and seamlessly taking over his intelligence network and his position of power in the town. If you ask me, this would be a brilliantly tragic end for Brennan. He would not die in a passionate shootout with a local mobster or a protective uncle. He would be eliminated with clinical precision by the very organization he dedicated his life to serving. It would be a stark reminder of the true nature of the WSB, a machine that grinds up its own agents the moment they show a hint of vulnerability. Hudson stepping over Brennan's body to become the new, terrifying face of the WSB in Port Charles would instantly establish him as a formidable force, a villain who does not operate on emotion, but on pure, ruthless protocol. I can't shake the feeling that we are witnessing the final, desperate days of Jack Brennan. Every move he makes right now feels like a man walking across a frozen lake, listening to the ice crack beneath his boots. He is trying to hold on to his power, trying to honor his debts to Nina, trying to outmaneuver Valentine Cassadine, all while the shadows of his own agency and the protective wrath of Jason Morgan loom over him. Whether it is a bullet from Jason's gun in a desperate bid to save Michael, or a silent shot from Hudson acting on WSB orders, Brennan is surrounded by forces that are far more lethal than he currently realizes. We are watching a master manipulator slowly lose control of his own game. The pieces are moving into place, the alliances are fracturing, and the secrets are becoming too heavy to carry. I don't know exactly when the breaking point will arrive, but I know it is coming. The tension in Port Charles is palpable, thick with unspoken threats and hidden agendas. Something feels unfinished. The story of Jack Brennan is reaching its crescendo, and when the music finally stops, I do not believe he will be the one left standing. We just have to wait in the dark, watching the shadows, until the final truth reveals itself.
Goodbye. Please like, subscribe, and comment on the GH Spoilers Daily channel.